G'day guys and gal. The Ultramarines have no shortage of legendary heroes. Manius Calgar, Remus Ventanus, even Cato Sicarius, the names of blue boys who have time and time again rose up to meet any and all challenges, using their plot armor wankfest powers alongside courage and honor to immortalize themselves as some of the greatest space marines of their age. However, none of these guys come even close to the legend and legacy of Remus Ventanus, the Saviour of Calth, the man who defied the will of chaos and saved his world multiple times. Even in death, his legacy and will was so great that he was able to once again save Ultramar despite being dead for over 10,000 years. He was the one that made the 4th company of Ultramarines so revered and famous, and it was his legacy that helped shape the legendary Remus Ventanus as we know him today. All in all, this is a bloke that you want to know about. Dude even has a Horus Heresy mini. Speaking of minis, the Major Mini range continues to expand, this time with 3 new models. The Honor Guard, 3 legendary warriors that come with a different pose, loadout, and armor markings. They're a callback to a different time, a time of ornamented unique armor, a time of champions and villains. They are designed to scale well with official models, so they won't look out of place in any army. They also don't have any unique symbols or identifiers, so you could paint them whatever color you like. They come in separate pieces and are semi-modular. You can pick them up as a single model, choosing the pose you like, or get the 3 of them together in a value pack. I've been working on these guys for a while and I was so stoked to finally have them out. As always, worldwide shipping is only $10. We sort out all the taxes and fees at checkout, and if you order more than $70 US worth, the shipping is totally free. Link to the Major Minis website is below. Today we'll go over the life, death, and legacy of the legendary Remus Ventanus, discussing how his efforts were able to save Calth, the Ultramarines, Guilliman, and the Imperium, and how his legacy would go on to save Ultramar itself. Let's get into it. There are many heroes or potential heroes whose names are never sung, either because they have never been challenged hard enough in life to distinguish themselves or they get unlucky, being one of the first to die from the shock of the beginning of a challenge. Remus was both lucky and got challenged extremely hard. He was a warrior first, 10 other random things second, and an administrative diplomat last. He was not a common Ultramarine, thinking a bit less rigidly and having a more open mind to less conventional methods of war. Guilliman wanted to teach Remus a bit more about giving a fuck about day-to-day tasks rather than just fighting, as the 13th Legion Primarch wanted to prepare his sons for a time where there would be no more wars to fight. As such, he put Remus in command of part of the Calth muster to teach him some responsibility. But then the Wordbearers attacked and things went to shit. The Wordbearers' attack on Calth was the greatest shock and betrayal since the Isfahan atrocity. The Ultramarines had been completely taken by surprise by the Wordbearers, since strategic warp storms had prevented the Imperium from warning Guilliman about the heresy. As far as the Ultramarines were concerned, they were mustering with their Wordbearer allies for a campaign against the Xeno Empire, some good old-fashioned genocide. So when the Wordbearers horrifically hijacked an Ultramarine ship, then sent it full throttle into Calth's orbital defense network and fleet, and then released a really fucked up scrap code supervirus to cripple all their communication and weaponry, the Ultramarines were quite bamboozled. The idea was to wipe out the Ultramarine Legion alongside their Primarch in one grand move, the shock of the betrayal softening up the Ultra Boys for the Wordbearers and their cultist armies to then clean up. In the meantime, they would then overcharge Calth's sun, making it unstable and spawning the Ruin Storm. A great plan, and it would have worked really well if it wasn't for the efforts of the captain of the 4th Company, Remus Ventanus, and a number of extremely badass Ultramarine heroes. Seriously guys, if you want to understand the Ultra hype, read Know No Fear and Mark of Calth. Genuinely makes me want to make a Space Roman kill team. When the Wordbearers unleashed their attack, thousands of Ultramarines died in the opening minutes. The Wordbearers' fleet was able to open fire upon the Ultramarines' fleet extremely easily, as the Ultra ships had their engines powered down, hence no shields, no weapons. A lot of cultists had also set up shop next to loyal Imperial Army elements, so while the chaos of the initial tomfoolery was taking place, and yes, throttling a battleship at people is very chaotic, the cultists were able to Zerg rush Imperial positions without much resistance, as everyone was so shocked. Calth's orbital defense platforms were taken offline by the scrap virus, so they weren't able to stop Wordbearer ships nor wipe out the traitor forces on the planet. The opening hour or so of the betrayal was extremely one-sided. Remus was able to survive the initial catastrophe and begun trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. From the get-go, he was very suspicious that it was a deliberate attack by the Wordbearers, not a freak accident, as so much damage had been wrought that he said he couldn't have even gotten close to matching it, even if he tried. After coming across more evidence of the betrayal, Remus and his warriors went into pedo killing mode, taking taking out a wordbearer Terminator and hitching a ride. He eventually bumped into a tech priest who was the only person left alive who was capable of purging Calth's systems and reactivating the orbital weapons platforms. If they managed to do that, then they could turn the tide back into their favor. So their mission basically became a where the fuck is an uncorrupted working USB port. They managed to find a strong point that had a working communication network. From there, they were able to send out calls and rally thousands of Ultramarines, many of which were from his fourth company. Shit became like a tower defense game, as Ventanus fought off wave after wave of wordbearers and their cultist cannon fodder. Even when some spicy mega demons got involved, Ventanus didn't back down, executing a hectic parkour move to stab a mega demon with a cursed blade, banishing it. While Remus coordinated the war on the surface, Guilliman coordinated it in space. The two legends were able to briefly communicate and figure out a plan. Guilliman had to destroy a wordbearer's device in space that would then allow Remus to retake control of the orbital platforms and bug spray the shit out of the wordbearers. And the Mad Lads did it. However, the wordbearers had nuked the ever-living shit out of Calth's sun, destabilizing it and causing it to eject a huge amount of radiation. So much so that the entire surface of Calth was about to become Chernobyl times 1,000. So whilst the wordbearer army started getting absolutely dumpstered by the rallied Ultramarine Legion and their space guns, both forces had to quickly go below ground to survive. Guilliman took most of the Legion and set off to chase Lorgar and bring him to justice for his treachery, whilst Remus was to remain on Calth, protecting its surviving civilians and bringing an end to the wordbearers who also remained. Without the efforts of Remus, all Ultramarines on Calth would have been overrun and killed, the orbital weapons would have finished nuking the sun, and Guilliman would have had to either flee with his tail in between his legs with barely any of his Legion, or he would have died. He was the saviour of Calth, but there was still plenty of saving to be done. Calth still had thousands of wordbearers and hundreds of thousands of cultists to deal with. The Ultramarines didn't have the ships to evacuate, and there were still millions of civilians living in the dozens of underground arcologies and bunkers. Now you might say Calth losing its entire biosphere may be a bit of a failure on Remus's part, but compared to the utter annihilation of the Ultramarine Legion and the entire population of Calth, the result was pretty good. Remus and his warriors were winning the underground wars, as they were called. They were more disciplined, with Ventanus being a greater commander than the two wordbearer war leaders still alive, Hol Beloth and some other dude called Zell something or other. Let's just call him Zell. He's not that important, don't worry. Hol Beloth had mustered thousands of wordbearers to him in one part of Calth, whilst Zell had mustered thousands more in a different part. There were some stragglers in between, but most of them were killed by Ultramarine ambushes or the orbital weapons platforms that were still functional. Often, Remus personally led the ambushes, driving wordbearers into the open and then dabbing on them as space lasers completely atomized them. In return, the wordbearers would smuggle nuclear bombs into refugee bunkers or arcologies and then blow them the fuck up, killing a lot of civilians but not doing much against the Ultramarines. It was basically just a bunch of terrorism from the wordbearers whilst the Ultramarines fought the actual war. Shit like this is why I always laugh when people say, there's no good guys in 40k. Okay, but one side is protecting their planet and safeguarding millions of innocent civilians while only engaging enemy combatant invaders, whilst the other side is nuking refugees for a laugh. Eventually, an extremely selfish wordbearer apostle called Calth saw that the war would inevitably lead to the wordbearers' total annihilation, so he basically signed a pact with the Chaos Gods. If he could kill everyone on Calth, both Ultramarine and wordbearer, then they would make him a demon prince. Hence he devised a pretty weird plan. He got Zell What's-His-Face to ritually suicide himself and all of his wordbearer warriors. In doing so, he baited Remus and most of his army to attack Zell's fortress. As Remus arrived, the dead bodies reanimated as demonic flesh suits that were designed to distract Remus and prevent him from returning to the main arcology. Then Marlock nuked the shit out of Hol Beloth's entire wordbearer army because I'm not really sure, it was actually a bit random. Then he turned Hol Beloth into a chaos spawn for a laugh before leading a squad of Terminators and a Dreadnought into the mostly undefended main arcology, with the plan of detonating a virus bomb within it, killing everyone and leaving Calth a desolate ruin. He would then use his power to teleport into the warp at the last second before the detonation and receive his reward. His plan was going well. He broke into the main arcology by mind controlling some poor sod, and his Terminators made short work of the small garrison. He armed the virus bomb and removed all of its failsafes and redundancies. The bomb would explode. That was guaranteed. He then basked in his victory and opened up a portal to the warp. But before he stepped through, he saw something that really pissed him off. Remus motherfucking Ventanus bust into the arcology on a land speeder that had been pushed well beyond its limits. Its machine spirit was so inspired and awed by Remus that despite it being out of fuel and literally breaking apart from how hard it was being throttled, it stayed together. Remus rammed the dreadnought that was holding the virus bomb, the impact knocking him back into a warp portal along with Marlock. The portal then closed, saving the arcology and Calth once again. Remus Ventanus was without a doubt the savior of Calth. It's not known if the virus bomb then blew up within the warp, but if it did, it really wouldn't have done that much. Marlock still got elevated to Demon Prince for his efforts, taking the name M'Ka and vowing revenge against Ultramar. Marlock's plan went pretty poorly. He had just sacrificed the majority of the word bearers on Calth for a plan that failed. Guilliman would return to Calth and rescue Remus, the people of Calth and the Ultramarines left on it. G-Man was so impressed with Remus that he promoted him to a senior advisor, and together they penned the Codex Astartes. Remus's out-of-the-box thinking and warrior instinct contrasted well with Guilliman's rigid strategies. He would serve by his Primarch's side for the rest of the heresy, being one of the main commanders who took part in the extermination of cultures, the Wordbearer's homeworld. Although there wasn't much to destroy, Lorgar and his sons had abandoned the world to a slow withering death. As I said, bad guys. Eventually, Ventanus would die. The details of his death are currently unknown, and he was placed in a legendary tomb designed by Guilliman himself on Calth. He was buried with his war gear as well as a word-bearer's athame, one of the original ones that Ventanus used to kill his share of demons. But Ventanus wasn't done yet. 10,000 years later, when Uriel Ventress found his tomb by accident, it inspired him, pushing him to join the Ultramarines and eventually find himself as the captain of the 4th Company, the position originally held by Remus. Ventanus' legacy had remained with the 4th, making them a more hot-headed renegade company that was known for their recklessness and courage. When Warsmith Honsu invaded Ultramar with the help of M'Ka, the demon that was once that shithead Marlock Cartho, he went to Remus's tomb in order to desecrate it. M'Ka wanted it destroyed and the Shard of Erebus dagger along with it, as that was powerful enough to kill him. Uriel arrived at the tomb and the two forces fought. Honsu was winning until Remus fucking Ventanus came back to life as part of the Legion of the Damned, driving off the traitors before giving Uriel the Shard of Erebus and telling him that M'Ka's true name is Marlock Cartho. With the dagger and the name, Uriel could now kill the demon, and kill him he did. In the following battle, he threw the dagger to Manius Calgar, who was able to use it to finally permanently kill M'Ka, finally ending the shithead and allowing Remus Ventanus to finally rest in peace. Only in death does duty end isn't always applicable in Warhammer 40k. Remus had saved Calth twice, saved the Ultramarines, saved Guilliman, and by extension saved the galaxy. He had then come back from the dead to save Uriel Ventress, a man he helped shape, before then giving them the tools they needed to kill M'Ka and save Ultramar. Holy fucking shit, what a chad. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Honor Guard, either as a single model or the pack of 3. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the real subscribe button for more honorable content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.